Hey, welcome back to the number one podcast in the world, the Cellarcast, episode 87. My voice, so again, I was over at Cats, and again, my sinuses got walloped. I was gonna use a harsher word, but then I realized we're in the first, we're almost out of the 30-second mark, guys. I can swear after that. Fuck. Like that. You want to know the worst thing? Oh God. Okay. So if you don't know, there's this new thing on YouTube where, I guess it's new. I don't know how long it's been going on. But if you swear in the first 30 seconds of your video, the video gets demonetized. And there might be other things that go along with it, like, oh, you can't run ads, or even if it gets claimed, you can't run ads. I don't know, but it doesn't really affect me because I don't monetize my videos. But in my head, I'm like, oh, but do they suppress videos with swearing in the first 30 seconds? All this shit is just random nonsense that they come up with, for people who use this site to deal with. But I'll tell you one way that it affected my life, despite the fact that it doesn't apply to me because I don't monetize my videos. I was having a phone call with my friend the other day. So I call her. She picks up the phone, and I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" And she, "Oh, not much. What's going on with you?" And I was about to say a sentence where I said "fuck," and for a brief moment, I hesitated because a little thing in the back of my head said, "Oh, first 30 seconds." Because I'm so used to watching videos, even though I don't make videos like that. I'm so used to watching videos with that and having that in mind. Like, oh, first 30 seconds, they can't swear. I was having a phone call with a friend, and the thing in the back of my mind said, you can't swear, it's the first 30 seconds. And I didn't say anything about it, and I felt violated. I felt like Susan Wudge had wormed her way into my head and was grabbing my synapses and twisting them around. I felt I felt violated. It was dirty. God, I fucking hate the people who run this website. Remember when they made the thumbnails with rounded corners? That was so cool. It's so cool because when I make thumbnails, I always make them with rounded corners in my photo making software. I always do that. That's what everyone does. Oh, wait, sorry, no one does that. You can't do that on any of them. Well, maybe on some of them, but no one makes their fucking things with rounded corners in any software. Why would you do that? Why am I making a thumbnail? And the thumbnail that I'm making, that I'm looking at in my program, is not how it's going to look on the website. Why would you do that? Anyway, yeah, that was dumb. And now, well, hey, actually, Susan's out. Susan's stepping down, and she's getting replaced by the guy who is really into NFTs, and I'm like, oh my god, this website's gonna fucking implode. It's gonna implode. And honestly, I was thinking about this, and I don't have a lot of anxiety over the death of the potential death of YouTube. And I'll tell you why. It's because YouTube's value doesn't really rest in the company. It's with the people who independently put their videos onto YouTube. So it feels like it's this weird situation where I feel like YouTube could absolutely die, right? Completely die. And the site would probably be fine for one reason or another. And I would foresee some situation where either it gets bought out or sold off or something like that. Because there is online video, YouTube, if YouTube dies, right, it's not just gonna, excuse me, it's not just gonna die forever, right? Like, online video is just a part of our lives right now. Like, it's just part of the culture. It's inherent. People need YouTube. People need something like YouTube, and if YouTube doesn't exist, something will rise up to replace it. I ate like 4 hours ago, and I'm burping right now. What is... excuse me about that. So I don't really have a lot of wariness about that. I'm also, like, kind of take a little bit of comfort in the fact that, like, well, I do have skills. I have skills that I've built up, like editing. I think I can be like a on-screen personality. I think I'm okay at that. But mainly, honestly, editing. If online video actually, it's always going to be there. People are always going to need it, right? So, and I can edit things. Maybe I'm massively overvaluing my skills, and I'm actually nowhere close to like anything that could even get like a low-level professional job. But hey, who knows? Who knows? Yeah. So look forward to the Cellar NFT collection. It's coming out. I'm gonna sell all my videos off as NFTs, guys, and I'm gonna make so much money because everyone likes NFTs. Hey, speaking of like really dumb decisions by companies, over the week, last week I opened up Twitter, and I was greeted with a lovely message that said something along the lines of, "Hey, starting on this date in like a few weeks, SMS two-factor authentication will only be available for Twitter Blue subscribers." And in order to prevent losing access to logging in to your Twitter account, turn off SMS 2FA. So that blew my fucking mind. Oh my god. So let's start with what that means. I feel like everyone's probably familiar with two-factor authentication. It's just that, hey, you don't just need a password, it's also going to need something else. And in many people's cases, what they get is, what people offer is, via text message. We'll send you a code, put the code in after you put in your password. It's basically so that you have two different ways of verifying that you are, in fact, the correct person who owns the account, right? Send one to your email, or use an authenticator app. In some cases, there's like physical keys, like basically a USB drive you just stick in, and it reads it. Those are the best ones, but they're kind of like, not everyone offers them. They're just, you have to like buy one. Most people just go with text message. Most people just go with SMS, or authenticator apps. I use authenticator apps for stuff that I care about. Selling, so this is like bonkers, right? The idea that only Twitter Blue users could access text message 2FA is crazy. And okay, let me break this down. So SMS 2FA is actually one of the worst forms of two-factor authentication, and that's for a couple of reasons. So number one, straight up, having 2FA at all is probably way better than just not having it at all, right? Not having anything. But of the options, SMS is the worst. And that is because it's really easy to compromise a SIM card. You can call up a company, like their support line, like a phone carrier. As long as you can figure out what someone's phone carrier is, which I'm assuming there's totally ways of doing that. Or find their phone number, for instance, you can really easily, this has happened before, impersonate them to a customer service representative and basically request a temporary or replacement SIM card. And they'll just give it to you because that customer service rep happens to be dumb. And then you can basically take that, have the SMS go to a phone you have, and then break through 2FA. Now, is that going to happen to everyone? No. It's actually pretty unlikely. And for most things, it's actually Not really. It's not a realistic thing that's going to happen, right? However, if you have like a bank account or something, I would hazard you against using SMS 2FA for that. I actually kind of was a little annoyed because my bank does not offer, it only offered SMS and email 2FA. And I was like, I guess I'll go with email. It's a little more secure. Yeah, if you have like bank details, put that on something that's not a text message, just for safety's sake. Just for a lot of things you don't have to worry about, right? You probably don't have to, if you don't care about it. It's very much like you can totally go overboard and have everything locked behind 100 different passwords, but like, do you care enough? Do you really care? Like, do I care about losing my Neopets account? Not really. So the fact that Twitter already offers multiple different methods of 2FA: SMS, email, and authenticator apps. Of them, I feel like authenticator apps are probably the most reliable. It's a lot harder to compromise one, but so you can still use that, right? And that's what I had to switch my account over to. So you have to pay to. This is like what's so crazy because it doesn't sound real. You have to pay for a subscription to get worse security. You have to pay a subscription to get. I don't know which would be worse. If you had to pay for authenticator 2FA, for instance, or what, right? Because in that case, in one situation, you're paying for better security, which at least makes sense, but it's like ethically, like it's fucking completely amoral and extremely hostile to your users. And the other case, you're paying for worse security, which just feels like a prank on your users and also extremely user hostile. It's like one of the most bafflingly anti-user things I have ever seen. Like open contempt for your user base to even try to monetize security features. Like the wildest fucking thing. Insane. Like pay more for, I guess, convenience. I guess it's the convenience aspect that people are going to be paying for. But it makes no goddamn sense. Right? It's so stupid. Who made this decision? It feels like a decision. It's so moronic. I was trying to come up in my head, I saw this, I was like, what? I was trying to come up with imagery to even describe how stupid this is. It's like the Sistine Chapel of a lobotomy is the only way that I could describe it. It's so mind-meltingly dumb, whoever made this decision. I feel like I want to say it's so stupid that a human being couldn't even have thought of it. They had to have had a dartboard or something, right? That they were throwing things at, or they made a randomizer, right? Elon needs us to come up with more ways to monetize Twitter because he fucked up too bad. He needs us to come up with more things. He wants one on his desk by Friday. Make a little randomizer. Twitter Blue subscription. SMS 2FA. Fuck it. Sure. What? Oh my god. What a god-awful company. What a horrible... It's one of the scummiest moves I have ever seen out of a company. I mean, the D&D OGL thing just happened, right? And this is probably one of the scummiest things I've ever seen from a company. Holy crap. Really, beyond the pale. Holy smokes, dude. beyond that, I let me talk about things that are actually that I like. The rest of this podcast is going to be dedicated to things that I like. So all you negativity feeders got to click off now. So Steam Next happened last week-ish, and Steam Next is it's almost like a Steam festival for game demos, upcoming games. And one of the new games that got demos, which I was not expecting, was the System Shock remake. So I have talked about this many times. It's something that I've been looking forward to very much for a while now. I was really pleased with the enhanced edition of System Shock, which you can also get on Steam, that Night Dive did. And I was a little worried because the remake it's been in development for the better part of 7 years, and that has involved, I think, at least one complete teardown, because they ran out of money. They kickstarted it, and it ran out of money. So they had to kind of like change the scope of the project, or change the ambitions of the project. So it's kind of been one of these like, okay, well, where is it going? When something's in development for 7 years, it's a little, okay, it doesn't bode well. And all we had was kind of a short demo beforehand, which I didn't try out, but I did watch it. I watched videos of it, pretty short. And it was like, okay, doesn't look like the worst thing, but it's not enough of the game to really like, you got to invest yourself in the game, right? System Shock is a lot of it is about the atmosphere. It's about the way that it flows. How does everything kind of fit together in terms of like the aesthetics, the movement, the gameplay, the combat, this puzzle solving. You need like a chunk of that game to really feel more confident about it. So the new demo came out of a new build. The full game comes out next month, I think on the 23rd. And it is the entire first level of the game. It's kind of what I expected actually when I heard there was a new build, because I was like, okay, if you're gonna do a more substantial demo, that wasn't just like a small section of the game, I would expect it to at least be the entire first level, like the whole med bay. So I played it. It took me about 4 hours. I did it in one go, and I am very encouraged by it. I actually had a really good time with it. So if I had to tell you the appeal of System Shock, or what's fun about the game, what's enjoyable, fulfilling about the game, I would say that System Shock 1 is a game about you are rewarded for exploring a very intricate and detailed series of levels, and finding secrets, collecting pieces of information, audio logs, emails, notes, things like that. Lots of environmental storytelling, puzzle solving, kind of like intermittent puzzle solving for certain things, and basically making steady progress by just exploring more. And it's all just tied together by this very absolute horror atmosphere and creepy vibes, right? That's kind of the heart, I think, of that game is what I would call it, is this sort of loop, the gameplay. That's what the gameplay sort of consists of, and the presentation elements that make it work. It's a horror game, very early. It's usually called an immersive sim. It roughly fits into that category. It's an early immersive sim. I believe the original game was 1997, 96, 97, something like that. The remake basically takes... I was like, okay, I'm a big fan of the original, specifically the enhanced edition, because that makes it way smoother. And what the remake does... Okay, I should say what I wanted out of the remake first. I was like, okay, there's a few things. A few gripes that I have, and a couple things they have to nail, and a couple things that I think is room for improvement from the original. So things they had to nail are the atmosphere, The feeling of piloting a cyborg, which is something I really love about the original. And that's honestly kind of it. The rest of the game, as long as you're just literally remaking, as long as you don't fuck with it, right? As long as you don't fuck with like the structure or anything about the really significant about the gameplay, like, or the level design or something, just leave all that stuff as is. Literally just recreate it, but with like 2020, I guess 3 at this point, 2023 fidelity. Or graphics, just updated art style, but keep the atmosphere, and the vibe of the game, the overbearing, horrifying vibe. Get some decent voice acting in there. Those were the things. Like, capture those basic essentials of the game, and the structure is going to be, at the very least. Here's the thing: unless it's just super buggy, you're remaking a game that's already good. If you just, even if it's like pretty whatever besides that, the base of the game is good, right? Now, on top of that, the things that I want to look at as a remaster, like things that I would like them to change or maybe add or whatever, I had a small list, but things that I think could definitely be improved by the original. The first, most pressing one is the cyberspace segments. So if you've played System Shock 1, you know that the cyberspace sections of that game are the worst parts of the game. Just the worst parts, easily. And it's disappointing because you can tell that, like, they were very ambitious with what they wanted to do with cyberspace. They were like, it's gonna be this cool, like, what does a world inside a computer look like? Like, what is you jack your consciousness into a computer? What does it look like? And the best way they could represent that in like 1997 was everything's like a wireframe and there's no physics and you're floating around and it's really stiff and confusing and awkward and you don't know where there's enemies and they're kind of hard to tell like what they are or like what they're doing, and like, oh, I'm getting hit, where am I getting hit from? It's just so, you're with this whole 360 degree of movement. It's like, okay, what is happening? Where am I supposed to go? Okay, I think I'm going the right way. And then every time I finished a cyberspace section in System Shock 1, I felt like I had done it accidentally. I was like, oh, I guess I did the right thing there. All right. It has this sort of thing where everything's a wireframe. You're basically in this series of wireframe arenas, I guess, that are connected by a series of tunnels. And like, I have to look up just to like confirm, make sure my memory make sure my memory isn't lying to me, because I'm like, I haven't played System Shock 1 in a while. It's as bad as I remember. You can't, there's like no, it's like, okay, how far is something? How near is something? Is that a wall? I can't tell because everything's a see-through wireframe wall. Things like are loaded in. You can see other parts of cyberspace through the wireframe walls. And it gets really messy visually. Like, I'm looking at screenshots of it right now, and some of the rooms are like, okay, that's not too complicated. Other ones are like, what is happening? Where do I go? Where can I even go? It's bad. So one of the things I was like, okay, probably the top priority, fix the cyberspace sections. Just fix it. Make it playable. They have. I am relieved to say cyberspace sections in the remake are much better. They're still a little weird because you're in like floating, you have like 360 degrees of movement, and it's a little like there's no gravity. Up can become down at a moment's notice. You can just flip sideways. It's a little weird, but it's at least much more playable because there's like textures. It has a very definitely like more of an abstract kind of like look to it. It's like, okay, yeah, this is supposed to look like a weird cyberspace. It still has kind of a grid look. It has kind of a sort of a see-through thing, but it's nowhere near as big. It's almost more like glass, right? Which they can actually do because they can do reflections. And there's like a little bit of like a little more signposting of where to go. Like the room will kind of pulse, and it'll sort of pulse in the direction of the objective. It kind of looks like the System Shock 2's cyberspace, a little closer to it, which is also much better than the originals. So that I was like, okay, it's fine. Still not my favorite parts. I found myself when I found there's only 2 cyberspace sections in the first level, which is the demo. So it wasn't like I haven't had a ton of time with it. You don't even go to cyberspace that many times in the original. But I think just because I was so trained to avoid those sections from the original, like, fuck, I'll do it later. I kind of put off doing it in the demo, which is funny because there's a portion that's like, there's a cyberspace terminal like really early on, and it's very clearly supposed to be like your first time going to cyberspace. Like it's placed there in this spot, this room that's like, oh, this is the natural point where the player would be exploring. They would find this room, and they would go investigate and go do the first cyberspace thing. And I just avoided it. But it is much better. It's significantly more playable. Still a little weird and wonky, but I don't know. It's hard to capture the original without like being a little weird and wonky. I am more than happy to accept that. The other things I was looking at to improve on the original were sort of balance issues. And it really comes down to like 2 weapons. Let me see if I can actually remember the name of the gun. There's a melee weapon and a gun weapon. System Shock 1 weapons. Let's see. This is the original. Okay, we're on the wiki. So yeah, okay. I think this is the one. So yes, this is the gun. Okay, so there's 2 weapons in particular. Number 1 is the TS-04 laser rapier. So you find this pretty early, I think on the 3rd level, and basically it's just way too strong. So I've got the thing open up right now. The wiki actually has the amount of damage it does. So it has the melee weapons. Pipe, 15 damage. Laser rapier, 200 damage. So basically you get this pretty early in the game if you just do a little bit of exploring. Like, it's not hard to find. Again, I'm pretty sure it's on the 3rd level. That you go to, at least. And it just does way too much damage. And it doesn't cost anything. They balance it out. There's an equivalent in System Shock 2, but they balance it out by having it use up your energy. Energy is like a limited resource that you have to recharge at designated energy like recharge stations. That's how it's much less powerful in System Shock 2, just for the fact that you have limited use of it. In 1, you can just run around and just cut things down. Like, pretty much every enemy falls in 1 to 2 swings of the laser rapier, and they do not tend to have very fast firing speeds, the enemies, which means that, like, if you get a bit of a jump on them, or you just kind of run at them, you can pretty much cut them down without taking a single hit, or you just like wait for them to approach. You end up playing like a very hit and run, just dash through and assassinate all the enemies in sight, just because this weapon is just way too strong. It just like, and because of that, you end up being able to conserve a lot of ammo. Which leads me to the second problem weapon, which is the what's it called again? The Magnum 2100. So it's basically a handgun. It's like the strongest handgun as far as I can tell. Yeah, it's by far the strongest handgun. The only things that outclass it are like, let's see, there's a rail gun, which is like which is like 200 damage. The Magnum does like 60 to 95 damage depending on what ammo you're using. The railgun does 200, but that's like has like a firing speed and reload speed and everything, yada yada. And then the only other thing, if you have osmium slugs, you do 95 with the Magnum. If you do 60 with hollow point. Here's the thing, enemies end up dropping like a lot of ammo, and because you're killing them with the laser rapier, you just get to take a lot of ammo and just save it and store it up. So if there's something that you actually can't deal with using the laser rapier, like it's too far away for you to like rush them or something like that, or they have a little too much health for you to not take damage, right? You just pull out the Magnum and you just take care of it like that from afar, and you just have like basically those two weapons. Once you get them, they just run the game for like a good chunk, like the whole midsection of System Shock 1. You have those two weapons, you basically don't need anything else, and it kind of sucks because it makes the game really easy. It makes the game significantly easier because everything falls to either the laser rapier or the Magnum, and you're never really in danger of not being able to use either of them. That's obviously a problem because this is a horror game with like combat, and the purpose of combat, or one of the main functions of combat in a horror game, is that it puts pressure on the player. Like the fact that you can die adds tension, that there's like something bad can happen, and then on top of that, the fact that you actually, if you just have a horror game with no combat, but like you can get killed by enemies, that's one thing. But if you can actually fight back, that actually puts pressure on the player to perform, especially if you can fight back, but you're very underpowered, or you don't have you're not very strong, or you're very limited in what you can do, like Silent Hill, original Resident Evils. Like that's how those games are. They're very much designed so that you feel disempowered. That's a pretty well-known thing, right? And when you suddenly hand the player the means to just take out enemies really easily, that whole part of the game kind of just evaporates, and you have to be like Dusk basically and come up with other ways of scaring the player. Dusk does that with just really good atmosphere and spooky level design and like build up in tension and and there's elements of that in System Shock, but not enough. Too much of it leans too heavily on enemies being threatening to be scary or to be tense, and those two weapons kind of invalidate a lot of the fear factor until actually I want to say the last quarter of the game. So like the first quarter and the last quarter, I want to say, are probably the hardest parts of the game. First quarter just because like you're very underpowered. The middle of the game, you're just able to like lean on those two weapons for to just take everything out. And then the last quarter, you still have those weapons, but the enemies actually start getting strong enough. They start actually scaling the enemies enough that they're actually kind of a problem, and you can't just blow through them with the Magnum and the rapier. That so the game does end. It does end strongly enough, but there's this sort of disappointment. Like, luckily, the basic gameplay and the whole means of like exploring and finding out more and opening up doors, solving puzzles, that is all fun and enjoyable enough to like carry the game. And all the different levels are varied enough that like it's interesting. You're solving puzzles, you're collecting clues. There's enough stuff around it so that it doesn't kill the game. Kind of like Realms of the Haunting. Like that's a throwback to people who have been around for a long time on this channel. Realms of the Haunting, a game which is really scary until the game just hands you basically an infinite ammo magic weapon, and then the fights become boring and tedious because, oh wait, the combat actually isn't good. and the game stops being scary. Also, with the game, that game just kind of gives up on being a horror game like halfway through. It's really weird. Right? So it has enough stuff around it that it's still enjoyable and decently scary, right? There's still tension and spooks. The soundtrack is great. I remember just the sounds of like rattling metal and just these background, almost industrial noises. Very grimy, bleepy kind of synth sounds. It feels really cold and like something could be coming around the corner. At any moment, an enemy could have spawned behind you or something, or spawned and found you. The sounds of the cyborgs scanning and speaking in these very hollow, mechanical voices, like some great stuff, right? Some great atmosphere in the game, but room for improvement. Those things specifically, the weapon balancing. They have the demo doesn't cover those parts of the game, basically. That stuff you find later on, and I think it's if they don't rebalance it, I would be kind of surprised if they didn't at least change like the laser rapier, right, to use up energy. At the very least. If they don't change it up, I would be a little disappointed, but the game would still be good. It would still be a good game at its core. I think I should probably speak about the visuals of the game. So there was the direction they were going with the game before they had to kind of like, kind of restart things, was they were going for a very realistic look. And the new kind of art style, now that they sort of rebuilt it, is this interesting kind of fusion. It's a very, when you're looking at it, you'll know this game when you see it, right? So it has modern, like, pretty high polygon models, for instance, right? But the textures are very intentionally pixely when you go up and look at them. In this kind of interesting, what would you call it? It's kind of like an interesting contrast, because you'll pick up a thing and it looks like here's a good example, like the chip bags or something that are scattered all around the space station. You'll pick them up and it's like a bag. It's like a fully modeled bag, but the logo on it is this weird like pixel JPEG or PNG, what have you. You'll look at like a wall, right, and the wall has like bolts in it, and if you go and you look up close, you can see like the pixels of the bolts. The wall is actually just flat, and the bolts are just like pixels with various shades on them when you go and inspect it, and stuff like that. But it doesn't look, how would I describe it? It doesn't look flat. It doesn't look flat, and because it has the remake also kind of combines these high poly, low texture, very robust lighting and shadows. Almost like sort of those games like, I guess Octopath Traveler would kind of, I guess it's that style where it's like pixel graphics, but with really realistic, almost like over-the-top lighting, right? Lighting and shadows and stuff, where like they're going a little too hard on it in some places, to the point where it looks kind of stylized. That's basically what the remake is kind of going for. So like you really see it in these rooms. Like there's kind of these side storage lockers, or not really lockers, but like what would you call closets? Closets. that you walk into them, and they have these weird kind of like foil walls, and it's just orange. The only lights are these blinding orange, look very industrial beams from the floor, and they're just reflecting all across these reflective like foil walls. The room just looks like it's baking, and it's so intense. It's almost hard to look at, right? Like really sticks out, like very I guess memorable kind of location for what would otherwise just be like a little closet. And then you've got other. I'm looking at more screenshots just so I can kind of remind myself what it. Look at pictures to help me understand it a little better. Very colorful, right? Like really colorful environments. Not just the lighting, but also, I mean, the med bay is very like, even in the original, it's very like teal, very green, like teal, gray, and there's all these different multicolored lights, red, green, yellow, orange, blue, you know, all this flickering and blinking. And they kind of like, there's some interesting shots here where like it's this dark, like the shadows in this game are dark. You look at a lot of screenshots of this, and a lot of this game is like dark shadows and then just lights, just blinking sci-fi lights on the walls, and it'll just be one big kind of light just casting this big red glow on things. Really atmospheric. There's this like kind of steam tunnel that you go through. It's like a maintenance tunnel, and there's just this fog, this steam, and it's so thick like you can't see anything in front of you. Atmospheric to the point of like being stylistic to the point of like kind of being atmospheric. I like it quite a bit, actually. It might not be everybody's cup of tea. It's very. It sounds dumb to call it very visual, but that's what it's trying for. It's going for a really out there art style. And personally, it works for me. I'm really curious to see other level, like engineering, which is the second. I think that's what it's called, engineering. It's where all the robot and like mechanical stuff, all that work is done. That's like bright red in the original. Like, God, if I haven't seen it in a second, engineering. Is it? Am I looking at the right one? No, that's level 7. What is it? Research? I forget the names of the levels. Oh, yep, research labs. That's what it is. Research labs. Yeah, just bright red. Everything's red and green. And I'm like, okay, how does that look in this art style, right? Because the med bay... medical. It is a little more muted. Like there's like a lot of black and gray, and it's sort of accented by these sort of just big teal walls and ceilings and a couple floors. So I'm curious, like, okay, when everything's red, how does the art style hold up? And I'm curious in a positive way. I'm like, oh, I wonder how they're going to handle it. And I kind of trust that they're going to... I do trust that they're going to actually do a decent job with that. Again, the core of the game is good. Unless it comes out super buggy, and I didn't encounter any bugs, at least from what I could tell, in the demo. There's like a little thing, and I think this is like an Unreal thing. So like... enemy corpses stay around, right? And the main the main enemies, or one of the most common enemies you'll find in the first level, are like the mutated zombies, right? For some reason, I guess the way that the game or the engine handles loading them in when you go back to an area with some corpses is that it sort of like drops them back in or something like that, or like it respawn. I don't know how it works, but all I know is that I would open a door and I would just see a body just start flopping around until it settled on the ground again. And it was really goofy and weird and actually scared me. It like took me, it was like, oh fuck, what is that? It scared me for a second because I thought something was like actually moving, like there was a new enemy or something. That's a little weird. I guess I can put up with that. It's just strange, and I don't know why it happens. One thing I will say that I was disappointed with, and I'm going to sound insane. You're going to think I've lost my mind. I wish the HUD was bigger. Like, I wish the HUD was like a big thing that took up a lot of space on the screen, and I could click around on it. And you look, I wish it was more like the one from the original game. And you're going to look at me like, what the fuck are you talking about? The thing is like unusable. It's so clunky. It's ridiculous. It takes up so much of the screen space. This one is so much better. And like, yes, I understand what you're talking about. But like, fuck, people are yelling in Spanish outside my door. Like, I look at it, I'm like, yeah, but like, it's cool though. It's cool. Like, look at the original System Shock UI. I've got a picture of it up right now. I want to say the actual game takes up like 60% of the screen, maybe 50%. The rest is just like, you got a bunch of like heart rate monitors that do basically nothing. You have a thing to adjust where you're looking. You have your health and energy, which like, okay, that's important. You have all your different cybernetic upgrades on the sides, and then on the bottom you got the map. You have on the right hand side you got like the weapon you're using. You can like reload from that little screen, and then like the center bottom it can be like multiple different things. It has your inventory. It has I think it has like your save games. It has the media you've picked up, like audio logs and emails and stuff like that. And you could put like, I think, a bigger version of the map on there. I'm not sure. I don't remember. Like it's ridiculous. It's so much. And I love it. It's great. One of the things that is really enjoyable to me about System Shock 1 is that it makes you... A lot of people hate... I think, like, weirdly enough, the menuing is one of my favorite parts of the original, because it feels like you're piloting a cyborg. The way that you have to, like, click around and, like, click around these like little interfaces that you have on your HUD in order to like see things, and like the whole time everything, there's no pausing. Well, there is pausing. There's like a pause menu, but it's only for like changing options and saving and quitting and stuff like that. Looking at your map, looking at your inventory, that's all done in game. And I think I don't know, it's so cool to be that like there's not a lot of games where you have to like I feel like part of the game, part of the experience of being the main character is operating this like cyborg interface, and that's cool to me. And I realize that most people hate that, and they just find it really clunky and awkward and archaic, but personally I think it's cool, and I just think it would be neat if there was an option to have like a big full-sized HUD that just, maybe not everything, but at least, I don't know, like let you access, just like give me some tabs, you know? Let me click to like, let me click a tab and be able to switch out my my weapons, use like a healing item or something like that. Or that's basically been been replaced. Most people are gonna much prefer the new one. It has a hotbar where you can assign items to, and the default one is that it's actually organized by like weapons, explosives, consumables. The full inventory is actually, I think actually the original is. You've got a basically, how do I describe it? I never know how to describe it. I guess like slot based. I usually just call it like slot based inventory, where like one item can take up multiple slots, like the attaché case. We'll just call it an attaché style inventory system. System Shock 2 uses it. This one uses it, and guess what? You can actually rotate items. I actually like. I enjoyed organizing my inventory. I actually liked that. I like organizing things. That was enjoyable to me. Again, take this with the grain of salt that I'm a weirdo, and I like the talking scenes in Castlevania. We'll get to that later. Overall, my thoughts on it are very positive. I'm probably going to get it on release. My experience with it was pretty much bug-free. I really enjoy the updated art style. I think it's cool. It's very stylized, but it preserves a lot of the atmosphere. Like, the shadows should be dark, right? I kind of love that the flashlight kind of sucks in this game. Like, the flashlight is not great. It's very, like, there's a lot of situations where you would be like, oh, I should turn on the flashlight. You turn it on and it does nothing. I love that. The controls feel pretty good. Combat is still a little stiff and weird. You kind of have to pay attention to the very subtle sound effect of an enemy being hit to tell that you've actually damaged them. But I don't know. I can get over it. Pretty much everything else that has to do with the game is preserved as far as I can tell. The progression, the exploration, finding items, managing your inventory, it's all there. And there's like a new little added sequence at the beginning. So, like, you know, the basic setup is that you're a hacker. You get busted trying to get some cybernetic implants. You get taken up to the Tri-Optimum space station where Diego has you remove the ethics, protocols on Shodan. That kicks off everything. In exchange for to give you some cybernetic implants. That's like the kickoff for everything. In the original, it's just like a quick cutscene. In this, it's actually like a fully playable segment where you're actually you're in the apartment. You're in your apartment. It's I wish it was maybe a little more interactive, but you can at least you can open the fridge. You can there's like a little guitar that you can interact with, and it'll play some music cues, like no full songs or anything, but little bits of music from the original game. I thought that was cute. There's a copy of the original game on your shelf. I don't know how that's supposed to work. You can go to the bathroom and flush the toilet. And then you sit down at your computer and do some hacking, which is just interacting with it basically. And then, oh, hey, that whole sequence happens. You're on the spaceship. I'm probably going to get this day one. And I think it's going to be good. Yeah. I would recommend it, and go play the demo. Check it out. If you're on the fence at all, the demo is at least pretty comprehensive. Like, yeah, the game switches up and it develops as you go further and further along. But if the demo at least gives you a good idea, just that the first level is going to give you a good idea of what the game is pretty much going to be like. The regular loop and everything. And hey, it's free and it's 4 hours of gameplay. So if that interests you, then definitely check it out. I'm giving it a thumbs up. Hey, you know what else I'm giving a thumbs up? Castlevania Season 4. So the two of us finished Season 4. We finished Season 3 last week. And I was actually kind of surprised. I thought Kat thought it was pretty good. Apparently she really liked Season 3. I have to say that of all of them, Season 4 is probably I would say it's the best overall, in my opinion. Or at least the one I enjoyed the most overall. This is going to be full spoilers, so like all the other ones. Season 4 feels like they were sort of, I don't know, it feels like a better version of Season 3 in a lot of ways. It's a new animation studio, and I expressed some some curiosity, I'll say, over how it was going to look. I have to say, for the most part, it didn't show too much, except for in a couple characters, and the action does look different. The studio does look like they animate action differently. All the action, they get very, like, the characters get, their frame rate goes low, and they do not have a lot of lines. And I was okay with that. I kind of liked that they were sort of janky and low frame rate, and it felt very snappy. It didn't look like shit, granted, right? So it still looks, I didn't think it looked bad at all. You could tell they're like, okay, we got to get a lot of frames. We got to get a lot of motion done. So, don't bother drawing too many lines on that character. Speaking of the action, I think that's one of the biggest upgrades is that Season 4 has the most consistent pacing. There's very frequent action. Things happen with pretty much every character. Characters go places and do things and have development. And it's a lot of plot threads come to a head. And it feels like things happen. I think one of the downsides, maybe, or one of the sticking points of Season 3, which I think I said last time, was that not a lot really happens every episode. It's just sort of like, we're going to talk a lot. And that can be really fun, but it is like, okay, something happened. And in Season 2, the way that they solved that was with filler action scenes. Hey, there's no filler action scenes in Season 4. It all advances the plot or makes sense. And there's action just about every episode, too. And it's pretty good. To Kat's pleasant surprise, or to her pleasure, I guess, Isaac's plotline does not involve a lot of talking. Kat still does not give a fuck about Isaac. I'm an Isaac defender. I'm still an Isaac defender. I think he's interesting, and I liked the stuff that he did. I like the stuff that he did in every season. But this is the one where he does he has the most plot advancing stuff. Last season was a lot of him just building up, and now he's actually doing things. He's actually going to attack Carmilla's castle. Oh, and he does. Oh, and he fucking wins. He destroys her. Fucking blows her the fuck up. Well, she does that herself. I think what was really satisfying about this season is that every character, just about every character, got a pretty good resolution, I feel. I wonder, they sort of bring up this thing. There's this sudden sort of new element, which almost feels like a response to the previous season, which is that there's several mentions of characters who they express a desire to become proactive in their own lives, which I think is kind of funny because the last season was just very like, well, we're just going to stand around and talk. And maybe go here. And so Isaac, I was kind of theorizing, or I could have seen his character go in a direction where maybe he's more positive, or like he's kind of like on the knife's edge of like what he's going to do. Right? Could he become like a tyrant? What are his morals if he wants to enforce a new kind of moral code or philosophy on a region he conquers, you know? We don't really get to see that. Oddly, he's one of the few characters who doesn't really get an epilogue. You sort of do. He says that he wants to go from... He sort of realizes that his entire life he has been basically reacting to other people, and he's been acting based off of what other people have done to him. That he's almost in a way kind of a even though he's not a literal slave anymore, he's kind of almost a slave to his own resentment in some ways. That all of the anger and hatred he feels towards humanity, he's kind of been looking at it the same way he looks at his ritual kind of like flagellation. Like he'll beat himself, and he says that the pain is actually, it's not pain like punishment, it's pain that like purifies. And he's kind of been looking at his sort of revenge quest against the human race as like a very broad global scale version of doing that. that humanity being punished and him killing everyone is going to in a way like symbolically purify them. He has that. Okay. He has this kind of conversation that in this season, he had the last one with the ship captain, who was actually freaking Lance Reddick. I didn't know that. Apparently that was Lance Reddick. We found who played the ship captain. I was like, oh yeah, because he was kind of putting on an accent, but I can kind of hear that. I wish I were LeVar Burton. I wish I were LeVar Burton. And he has a conversation with the they never say his name, but the subtitles call him Fly's Eyes, the sort of like bug night creature who can like speak and is a little more intelligent than the other ones. I thought that character was actually really interesting. In the last season, it's like, oh, he's like this because it also kind of clarified the way that turning them into demons works. He's literally, I kind of thought it was like turning the person he killed into a demon, but no, he's killing them and then he's using their body as a vessel for a soul he pulls from hell, basically. So Fly's Eyes was like a scholar in Athens who was murdered by Christians for like heresy. And he has this kind of like, they align on the idea that they want to like, that they feel resentment and bitterness towards humanity and they want to wipe them out. But Isaac kind of like, they have this sort of interesting conversation where Fly's Eyes, so they've been in this town that Isaac took at the end of the last season. And they've just kind of been like building up essentially. And they've been doing a little bit, he basically had them bury all of the bodies that couldn't be used for demon transformations. He's had them bury them all. Fly's Eyes goes over to him and he's like, hey, why do you want us burying these bodies? I don't want to do that. And Isaac says, well, it's going to cause like death and pestilence. And Fly's Eyes is like, we're fucking demons, dude. We're from hell. We love that shit. That's awesome. Don't you want that too? And Isaac has this weird kind of moment where he's kind of like, it's interesting because I mentioned last episode that it's satisfying to me to see a character kind of admit that maybe or realize that maybe they don't understand the entire world. And that was sort of a scene, a change you see in Isaac a little bit during the third season, like when he has that conversation with Lance Reddick, captain. And that kind of like, you see where that's gone when he during this conversation, where he basically says to him, like, oh, what is it? It's like, yeah, so it's like, okay, I've been thinking about it, and I draw up souls from hell, right? Now, eventually, what if I drew up every single soul that's ever died from hell onto the earth? Should they just live on the earth forever? Should should their retribution on earth last forever? I don't fucking know. And he just he expresses that he's thinking about it. And he sort of like has a bit of a change. There's a moment where he goes back up to the tower and he's sort of just talking to himself. He doesn't have a lot of people to talk to, which is why they had to come up with this demon character for him to talk to. But he's just talking to himself, or he's sort of talking to like almost this statue of the old wizard who was controlling the town before he came. And he basically says that he's been thinking about it, and he's realizes that he's been basically just reactive to everything. I guess we're sort of circling back to that. He's been reacting to things his entire life. He looks, his whole quest for retribution is in many ways, he's letting what other people have done to him control his motivations, control what he wants. He hasn't been doing it because he like truly wants it. He's been doing it because of other people. Even if it's like indirect and something that obviously, other people don't want to be killed, he is still being controlled by his emotions that they cause him, right? He's still kind of a puppet to other people. And he's kind of thinking that like, well, maybe I want to be different. Maybe I want to be proactive in my life and make changes and not. Oh my God, he's Bridget from Guilty Gear. That's Bridget's character arc. Oh my God, that's Bridget's character arc. Who's laughing now, Kat? Who's laughing now? Now you have to like Isaac. That's Bridget's character arc. That she realizes that she doesn't have any purpose after she's accomplished everything because that she wanted to, because she actually doesn't feel fulfilled because everything that she's done was just influenced by the feelings of other people and her feeling guilt and stuff. And she's like, wait, what? My whole identity is built on reacting to other people. Oh no. Now you have to like him. Isaac's he's the one character who looks different, the most different in the new animation studio. He almost looks CG in some shots, which is really weird. I think it's the fact that obviously like he's bald, so the way that they kind of end up shading him, they have a much softer shading style than the previous seasons. So the way that he ends up kind of looking is it reminds me of like he almost looks cell shaded, like a cell shaded CGI character a little bit in some shots, specifically the ones where it's like a close up of him talking. Because it's just a close up, they can put a lot of frames into animating his mouth, so it just looks like almost like a model that's like the mouth is just like interpolating. It's a little weird, but I don't think it would be weird to use him, make a CG thing for just a close up of character talking. just animate the mouth. Yeah, he's the one where I noticed it the most. Let's see the other characters. Hector is gets to do. Hector also, that's kind of his. He and Isaac, I guess, have. Everyone kind of has this arc of them becoming more proactive in their lives, right? Getting more control over their lives. Hector has like the biggest. Hector is like the most literal example where he literally has the OnlyFans ring. Oh no, I came up with a better one. He's a tier 3 sub to Lenore's OnlyFangs. Her OnlyFangs account. Because she got those fangs. Right? And there's like a cool... The moment I started to really like Hector, the moment where... I didn't dislike the character or anything. I thought he was decently interesting. I was interesting because I could see where the character had room for development, and I think I like that. I like that in characters that have room for development, and I'm like, okay, I'm curious about where they could go, and that kind of makes me more invested in them. I'm glad that Hector got a moment where he gets to basically say, actually, fuck you, and he takes a stand. He makes that, like, magic cage that traps Lenore. He cuts his fucking finger off. Like, he goes really hardcore. He cuts his finger off with the ring so that the night creatures that he makes won't be under Carmilla's control anymore. And he's like, just go wild, dude. Go crazy. When Isaac shows up. I was like, okay, this character... This is his culmination. This is like the moment where this is a turning point in his life where he's like gonna actually stand up for himself. It's taken 3 seasons, but he finally got there. He decided he's not gonna be anyone's bitch anymore. He spends the whole series being everyone else's bitch, and then he goes, "I've had it. Silence, wench. I do not wish to be horny anymore. I only want to be happy." That's literally what he does. Although he does still stay with Lenore. I guess the vampire pussy was just too good. Other things. I liked the scenes where the two, let's see, Big Buff Lady Vampire and her brown girlfriend vampire, where they're basically like surveying the battlefield. And they kind of realize that, like, they were decently on board with Carmilla's plan. And then, I think her name is Striga, the buff lady. and they get attacked by these human farmers, and she goes out in like daylight armor. I'm glad that that wasn't a more common thing. I'm glad that it was just like a one-time thing that just only her has, that she has this thing that can like nullify the power of daylight. I was like, okay, that's cool for like making, I would believe that she would want to come up with something like that. Also, it looks cool. It's very clearly a Berserk reference with her giant ass Dragon Slayer sword. The way that the helmet kind of like, there's even the shape of the helmet is similar to like the Berserker armor from Berserk. And that whole scene was cool, that she comes back and she's like, oh my god, I just realized we're gonna be fighting a war. I'm gonna be just killing farmers in a field all like for years. Like, it's never, she's like, yeah, it sounds fine, like it makes sense on paper, but realistically, like, human beings are just gonna like, they're gonna scatter, like it's gonna get messy, basically. And she basically sees this future where she's stuck just taking care of constant little human insurgencies and all this, and she's just doing that constantly for hundreds and hundreds of years, and her girlfriend is at home making sure that like with the supply lines stay open, and fucking they never get to eat each other out, and it's just fuck, I don't, how could you eat my girlfriend, how fucking hot, I'm never gonna see her again. They're like, maybe this is all bullshit. Carmilla sucks. Carmilla gets a moment where she like, you sort of see the mask slip a little bit. I thought that was interesting. She has this moment where Lenore is feeling she's got the blues because she realizes that now that Lenore's the diplomat, and now that everything's basically figured out, like, she's got nothing to do. She has no one to negotiate with. Her purpose has basically been served now that Hector's under control, and now that Hector's a tier 3 sub. And she basically like goes to Carmilla. I forget exactly what they're talking about, but Carmilla basically just takes it as an opportunity to be like, I want the whole fucking world. And Lenore's like, wait, the whole world? Like everything? And Carmilla's like, I want fucking everything. I fucking hate men. I fucking hate men. And Lenore's just listening to her. And you can like see it in her eyes. She's like, oh my god, she's fucking insane. She's never gonna be able to do this. She's like a complete egomaniac, and she's like, she always kind of knew about this, but it was just, the opportunity was never there for Carmilla to like fully like hit that point where that was even like a thing she could imagine, right? Like, I can control all of Europe, I can control Asia. Lenore's like, Asia? You know how big Asia is? We want to do a what? And she's like, we're just 4 fucking people. We're just 4 vampires. And like, yeah, we could maybe control a decent chunk of Europe. But like, fuck. And she's like, you get to see Carmilla. Carmilla's whole thing is that she's actually a lot like Isaac. Because Carmilla is motivated entirely by her resentment for other people. She fucking hates... she hates men. She hates old men with power because one of them kept her in a castle for years. It was like a vampire. She hates old men with power, and she wants to just get back at them categorically. And you kind of start to realize, you're like, wait, she's like the same thing, but she thinks it's she's like the same kind of person. Her ambitions are literally the same as these old men that she hates. The only difference, the reason she thinks it's okay, is because in her mind she's getting like revenge because of her sex, because she's a woman, and that makes it like okay. and Lenore kind of starts to realize, oh my god, she's fucking nuts. She's as insane as all these power seekers who she thinks she's better than. So it's almost kind of poetic in a way that Isaac is the one who basically overpowers and destroys Carmilla's entire kingdom. Right? That scene that they have is really cool. that whole fight scene, I love the shot. Oh, it's such a good shot. Carmilla's going nuts, just cutting apart just hordes and hordes of night creatures in like her like big throne room, and Isaac is walking up the stairs, and these big steps, there's just like a flood of, there's so much blood, it's flooding down the steps, and he's like walking up, but as the blood's pouring down, it's great. Oh, what a cool shot. Like, you gotta do that. You got whoever came up with that, whoever wrote that in was that was a great idea. I haven't even really talked about the other characters. So Trevor and Sypha get a decent amount of play. I think enough that, I mean, the show has a lot of characters. It's got to spend a lot of time with them. You know, make sure that they get enough screen time each. Trevor and Sypha actually do have quite a bit of stuff going on. They have a little plot line where they're going back to, I forget what the original city was, where Dracula first kind of like declared his war on humanity, where they burned his wife, like Greshit or something. So basically they go back there. It's this hellhole. It's just being besieged by night creatures all the time. And there's this underground court of basically nobles who are hiding out. And they're like, hey, what's going on with them? Meanwhile, there's this new vampire called Varney. And he has a Russian, he's from London. I wish they'd drawn him with like crooked fangs or something. That would have been funny. And he's got a Russian companion called Ratko, who's like a Russian vampire. Ratko's fucking cool. He's so cool. I wish they made a fighting game of Castlevania again. And Ratko was in it. He's fucking cool. So there's a lot of different plot lines. I guess the two main plot lines is, one, all the stuff with Isaac, Hector, and Carmilla, the whole gang over there. Isaac building up his whole army of forces and going to defeat them. And then the other kind of parallel plot line with the main characters, I guess, is everyone's trying to bring back Dracula. Why does no one want to bring back Oprah, you know? Why does no one want to bring back Obama? So everyone's trying to bring back Dracula. And that's like the first thing you really see Trevor and Sypha do. I think it's like the opening of the season too, is just weeks and weeks of them just fighting people who are trying to resurrect Dracula. And you're like, what the fuck? God damn it. We killed him like months ago. People were still trying to bring him back. It's like that scene from The Incredibles. Like, oh god, I feel like the maid. Turn around, something else breaks. So they end up in Greshit, and Saint Germain is back. I thought he was just gone. But he's back, and guess what? He's evil as fuck now. He's not in Greshit. He's with Alucard's group. Alucard gets a little message. He's gotten way more dark and just putting people up on stakes outside of his house. Like, he's fucking call him Mr. Anthropic. And he gets like a distress message to help this village that's been under attack by monsters, and he feels he's like he has enough humanity in him to recognize that like the horse comes to him, and like the messenger is dead on the horse, and he still rode through the night to get to the castle, and he at least respects it enough to go out and help them. And hey, guess what? Saint Germain is there, and he's like, oh, you know, we can't go to this village. We can't defend this village. Why don't we go to your castle instead? I'm sure it's really well defended. And Alucard's like, that's a great idea, Saint Germain, who I've just met. Let's do that. So I like Saint Germain a lot more in this season, which is surprising because he's super evil now. Saint Germain's whole deal was like, oh, he lost the person, basically his one true love, who he lost in the infinite corridor. He never got to tell her that he loved her. He wants to find her again. He goes back to that dimension at the end of season 3. But guess what? He can't find her. Apparently she's just left. But he meets this strange, like, alchemist woman who tells him that basically if he wants to do it, he has to go Joker mode. He has to abandon all of his morals, all of his principles, even his very humanity, if he really wants to gain the power to control the infinite corridor, and he has to do horrible things. And he's like, he basically starts down this path that of this dark path that he's going to he's killing and lying and robbing people to get the information that he needs of like how do I control the infinite corridor. And you can see that he kind of like he fucking smashes this guy's head in with a hammer, and he's like on the verge of tears about it. He's like, what am I becoming? And then eventually he's just almost like stone cold, like it has to be done, like you don't understand, like how bad I want it. I'm on the grind set. He's on his Sigma male grind set, his Grussel set. And that kind of culminates with like, oh, I need to use Dracula. I need to find like where Dracula was killed at his castle. And he's collaborating with Varney, this new vampire. Oh, what's going to happen with that? Trevor and Sypha, they go they go underground to the underground court. They finally find it, and or they get allowed in, and they realize that the king and queen are actually just zombies. And like the last noble, Ramsey or something like that, Zims or something, Kat really liked her, is basically like an insane person. She believes wholeheartedly that they're going to come back to life and that they're going to save everyone. And she's basically like, it's almost like a religious thing for her that she believes. It's literally like it's her Jesus. That they're going to come back, they're going to save everyone because they were powerful wizards. And Trevor's like, they're just zombies. This guy's dead as fuck. He's not coming back. Fucking Varney shows up, yada yada blah. Yeah, it kind of goes how you sort of expected. Saint Germain has laid a trap to kill a bunch of the villagers who've moved into Dracula's castle, or they've kind of made camp outside. So he's gonna collect souls for this ritual. Varney shows up. The twist, I will say this, the twist with Varney's identity was awesome. I thought that was great. That took the both of us really off guard. The first twist and then the follow-up, like, wait, when it goes deeper? When Varney reveals that, like, actually, and there's this funny foreshadowing, right? That he says he was part of Dracula's initial court. And you just kind of take that, like, okay, whatever. He was part of the initial court, we just didn't see him, right? There was a bunch of vampires there, right? And then he reveals, actually, he was the alchemist woman who told Saint Germain to go on this journey. And it's like, what? And then he's like, actually, that's not even my real... That's just one of many identities I've had. I'm actually the fucking Grim Reaper. I'm Death. I'm just a straight-up Grim Reaper. And we were... Oh, shit! Oh, my God, it makes so much sense! Death is like a last-minute villain, right? Oh, so one of the... I was like, oh, that's funny, because Death is always like the penultimate boss in like... Excuse me. In like a bunch of different Castlevania games, right? He's always the penultimate guy. I'm like, oh, that makes sense that he would be like, oh, he's part of the initial chord. Yeah, okay, I get it. Going back and looking at okay, that's some very clever foreshadowing. I never would have gotten that. The way he explains it, it makes like he's a last minute twist villain, but I think it works because he's basically like a force of nature that can speak. And they foreshadow it even at the beginning, where one of the first sort of resurrect Dracula cults that Trevor and Sypha kill is they're worshiping like a statue, like a monument to death, to the Grim Reaper. And Trevor just mentions like, yeah, it's not like actually death. It's just like the form of a spirit that like feeds on death, right? And then when it reveals, it's like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's a pretty well executed twist villain because, first of all, you had the foreshadowing that everyone's trying to resurrect Dracula. You know Saint Germain's trying to resurrect Dracula, but then you find out why, like who's actually pulling the strings. And Death's whole reasoning is, oh, I can't reach into hell. I actually have very limited powers over certain things. And I need Dracula to like actually be able to raise an army. He's like the only one who's powerful enough that I can maybe manipulate, right? He's the only one who actually started a war on humanity. Maybe he could have gone for Carmilla, but Dracula was the one who he was like, I guess he had his sights on. Dracula had the resources for a full-scale war on humanity. So like, I just want to kill everyone, right? I want to kill everybody. And he manipulated Saint Germain to get him to do it. It's such a great twist. It's so great. I thought it was great for Saint Germain. I thought he was like, because what I wanted out of Saint Germain was just a little more flavor. Like I said, I wanted him to be played a little. I wish he would have been played a little more eccentric in the third season. And in this one, he does get a little more personality, or he gets a little more like emotion, I suppose. He's not just kind of talking like this the whole time. There's like, oh, he's evil, and he's being a much more, I don't know, he's more entertaining to watch, which I wish he'd been in the third season. And then the reveal that he'd been manipulated the entire time into serving the Grim Reaper was, I thought that was great. Because it's like making him like pay like all the regret he would feel. He feels in that moment that the entire he's like, oh my god, I'm such a fucking idiot. I'm so fucking stupid. It's like the perfect comeuppance, right? And then like that whole weird scene where, and to keep on Death, I'm fine with him like not being a particularly complex character. He's a force of nature. It's Death, right? He's a big spirit who feasts on souls, or on the dead specifically. Okay, very sensible motivation. It doesn't really matter that we haven't been aware of that until like right this instant, because there's already been like a threat, right? Oh, someone wants to resurrect Dracula. Obviously we have to stop that. Then when that gets replaced by, oh wait, it's actually even bigger than that, the threat of Dracula resurrecting is still there. That was all still it all still meant things for the audience to care about that. But now it's actually even more important, and you realize that this character could be even more threatening, right? And I'm cool with that. There's not as much, what I would say, like, development or change necessarily for Trevor or Sypha. And that's fine. I was happy with how they were. Sypha is a little more cynical. She mentions that they have this kind of little argument about how she never used to swear, and now she swears because of Trevor. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cute. Like, he's rubbing off on her. Literally. But there's also, like... there's a bit of, like, oh, I totally remember. There was something, like, super... Does Trevor do something? I feel like Trevor totally does something in this season that's, like... Oh, that's, like, a nice thing he does. I can't remember it right now. God damn. What else? Oh, Alucard. Alucard was also a character who... I think it was setting up the idea that, like, maybe he could become more like his father. He was already becoming more like his father. Obviously, he's sticking people on sticks and stuff like that, staking them. They kind of it's kind of a situation where he's like, they kind of go back on that, and I'm not like upset about that. It's just like, okay, there was like a threat that maybe Alucard could become a lot darker and become disenfranchised with humanity as a whole. And season 4 kind of has him sort of returning and going back and reconnecting with people. Really, Alucard's I guess, enemy is like his loneliness. Alucard has all of these things where he's just kind of fucked, right? His dad was this like megalomaniacal vampire. His mom got killed. He himself is like a half vampire, so it's like you can see some distance between himself and the rest of humanity. He doesn't really like other vampires because they're all like insane and want to kill people. He's literally mixed. He's a mixed kid. He's like a mixed kid who doesn't know which table to sit at lunch. That's Alucard, between humanity and vampires. And he kind of, you can see how he feels alone. And after Trevor and Sypha are gone in, season 3, he just starts losing his mind. He starts literally just going nuts. He needs some kind of connection to stay sane. I guess that's like the human part of him. And the connection that he gets with these villagers, specifically pretty long hair brown lady, is who Kat also really liked, is kind of like healing his soul, basically. He's like a going through a healing experience, working with and connecting with and protecting these people. There's a very big cute scene where he's kind of messing with the kids, where he's just kind of hanging out on like one of the spires of the castle. The kids are looking up at him and they're and then he just drops down. He just walks off the roof, falls down towards them, and they're like, "Oh my god!" What? And then he just pauses. He just hovers in midair right before he falls on them, and they run away, kind of like laughing. And it's like, and like the lady, she's a character walks up to him, and they're like, "Oh, that's very cute." And he's like, "What? You saw that? Well, you weren't supposed to see that." Fuck. It's this. I don't know. It's like the she mentions that they're calling him Dad now, Daddy Alucard. I love that. His kind of like humanity is being rekindled. There's like these like he actually enjoys making children laugh and stuff like that. As much as he like despises Trevor, right? He's kind of happy when he finds out he's alive. Oh, also, Trevor being alive was like, it's an ass pull. What the fuck? I don't fucking care. It's whatever. It's the last episode. You do whatever. I genuinely thought he was gonna stay dead. The final fight between him and Death feels like pretty final, like final, like climactic. Like, oh, this is. He's gonna die for a noble cause, right? The complete opposite, the direct opposite of how he started the series, just being kind of a whatever wanderer, fuck people, whatever. Now he's willing to give up his life to save the entire world. That's like the apotheosis of the character. And then I was like, okay, I'm assuming then, because obviously, well, there have to be more Belmonts. I'm assuming Sypha's going to be pregnant, and he's going to be dead. He's going to have to maybe raise the kid alone, or without like a father or something, or maybe I don't know. That's where I was kind of seeing it going, and then she walks out. Trevor's still presumed dead, because everything exploded, and she goes, "I'm pregnant," and Kat popped off. She's like, "Yeah, he fucking nutted in her. I'm so hyped. Sypha's could be a mom." And I was like, okay, I see it. And then Trevor just kind of shows back up. He's on a horse. And he's like, I guess Saint Germain in his last moments set me through the infinite corridor, and now I'm back. Okay, it's cool. Fuck it, sure. And Alucard's, for as much as he dislikes him, or kind of butts heads with Trevor, genuinely is happy that he's back. He was gonna call the village Belmont. He was gonna call it Belmont, and I'm like, okay. They have like I like the relationship where like they hate each other, but they kind of like each other, right? They're like frenemies. They won't go out of their way to like fuck each other over, but they'll like talk shit to each other, and I like that dynamic. Hey, they're just a big happy family. It's all nice. Everyone gets a pretty everyone gets a pretty satisfying ending. Lenore kills herself by walking into the sunlight. So Hector's basically free. He's free to actually make a decision of what he wants to do for the rest of his life. We don't know what Isaac's exactly gonna do. Trevor and Sypha are gonna raise a kid in this village, and Alucard's gonna be there. Everything's gonna be cool, right? No one wants to resurrect Dracula. Saint Germain didn't get a happy ending, but he did. But he did sort of redeem himself. He had one last moment of a good deed. It's like, okay, that's fine. Oh, and then I guess this is a setup for the next series or whatever that's coming out. Dracula and what's her name, Lisa, are back. They actually do get resurrected. That's a creepy scene where they make the rebus, and it's all it's like these stitched together, this like Frankenstein's monster of body parts, and the Saint Germain pulls Dracula and Lisa's souls out of it because it has to be a male and a female soul, and they have to combine into the body, and they're like, the soul is like bouncing around and like twisting, and the face is like shifting, and it's like really grotesque. And Kat was legitimately creeped out by it. It's like, ooh, it's pretty gross, kind of gnarly. And then I guess they're back. I guess when the rebus explodes along with death, they're just back. And you know what? Once Dracula's got his girl back, he's pretty chill. He's probably a cool guy, actually. He's like, I just kind of want to travel. Let's go to England. I love how he says that England has there's no sunlight. It's good for vampires because there's little sunlight. Hey, let's just go to England and live in a little fishing village. Wouldn't that be cute? She's like, yeah, that would be cute. So I guess maybe that's like a setup, or I'm not sure. I forget. I don't think that happens in the game, so I don't know where it would go. Like, what else would happen with Dracula? Maybe something, because the next series is going to be about Richter, which is like a very, very obvious direction to go. Richter's probably the next most popular Belmont character. Everyone knows Richter because he was in Symphony of the Night. But like, I'm like, I'm pretty sure Dracula X is just that, like, oh, Dracula's back. That's the premise. Dracula's back, and doesn't really get too much deeper than that, as far as I'm aware, as far as I can recall. I played the game, so I don't know what would happen. Maybe Lisa gets. Maybe the British people don't understand them. Maybe Lisa gets killed again. Or maybe honestly, by that time, maybe she's just died. Maybe she's just died of natural causes because Dracula doesn't want to make her a vampire. Right? Like, and maybe that's the direction they're going to go in, is that Lisa dies, Dracula's been alone for a long time, and when he doesn't have his girl around, he gets a little grumpy. Might declare a little war on humanity again. Hey, speaking of Symphony of the Night, someone said that they're pulling a lot from the Symphony of the Night version of Alucard. I can see that. I really felt that in this season. Alucard he does the transformations. He does the wolf. He does the bats. I don't think he does Mist in this in the show, but he does those. There were parts where, like, I want to talk about the action. So as I mentioned before, the action in season 4 is much more consistent, and also it doesn't feel like filler, which is a big plus. It's always like it makes sense. It's like, oh, an action scene is happening here because there's a natural conflict, or it is causing something, right? This conflict is causing something. It happens just about every episode, and it's pretty good. It's really cool. Lots of complex shots with big spinning camera angles, lots of motion and movement, and characters using their weapons and abilities in cool ways. I thought one of the last sequences where Trevor, Sypha, and Alucard are making the journey up to the castle to stop Saint Germain, I thought that was great. It felt like in like a shonen anime where they fight, like it's like a tournament arc or whatever, where it's the author's excuse to throw in a bunch of enemies with like gimmick abilities. This felt like a speed run of that, where it's like, yeah, it felt like Alucard fights this like monster Viking guy who throws an axe. He has 2 axes and he can throw them and then teleport to the axe. That's cool. That feels like it's from a game or something. I'm not enough of a Castlevania aficionado to tell you if that's based off of a boss or something, but like that feels like a thing from a video game. There's like it's like a thing. It's like a guy who's all like spiky and has like all these bandages, and he can like teleport and phase through walls, and he can like throw bandages on you, and like he can control them like tendrils. There's like they have to fight like 5 different bosses at once. With all these like different little like magic abilities and stuff. It's like very complex, but like quick, like these quick fights that was like cool and entertaining, and it was really good. I thought it was great. Yeah, I when I say that it's the most consistent season in terms of those things, I say that as like, I don't know. I guess season 3 maybe had more time for character development. I don't even know if that's true. Maybe I'm just making that shit up. But this feels like the best elements of the show done the most consistently well. Maybe if I was to go back and really examine each season, I could tell you what like weaknesses that 4 has in comparison, but it felt like, okay, the pacing's good, like stuff is actually happening every episode, characters are developing, there's some twists, there's some enjoyable like character stuff, there's conversations, they have a good amount of conversations, philosophical talks and stuff like that to flesh them out. The action still great. Yeah, I was a little concerned, like, is it going to be, how are they going to handle the action sequences? Still good. Voice acting, still pretty consistent. Oh, one thing I've been meaning to talk about, and I guess I guess I can talk about this now that the whole series we've finished. The cursing in the show. I get that it's a Netflix show and you can do whatever you want, right? The cursing feels like a little excessive. Like, okay, I get that, people are going to talk kind of rough. I'm fine with people talking rough. It just feels sometimes like they were overdoing it. Everyone enunciates it really hard when they say fuck, too. Everyone, it feels like, okay, did you really, like, have to write fuck in there? Did the character have to say that? Like, it felt a little, like, unnecessary. And, like, when you're writing a character, I feel like the way that they speak should be indicative of, it should indicate something about the character. And I remember this because when Death shows up, he talks a lot of shit. He uses a lot of salty language. And I remember seeing memes about this, about like, oh, isn't it so funny that Death talks like a Redditor? Compared to any other villain, right? And then I was like watching it, and I remembered those memes. I'd totally forgotten about that, like from when the season came out. And I was like, not really, because he kind of talks like most of the characters in this show. Like, let's pull up, let me see if I can find a Castlevania Netflix Death. Dialogue? I don't know, he says some shit. Where is? Oh my god! I feel like I've seen so many memes. I feel like I've seen so many memes of funny. Oh, isn't it so funny that he says fuck and like he's gonna rip your fucking throat out and stuff like that. Oh boy, we have the whole quotes section. Death dialogue. Oh my god, they have a whole section for him on the wiki. Oh no, this is from the games. Okay. Anyway, yeah. Like, I don't have a problem with him swearing. I actually think the idea of the Grim Reaper, like, being this really salty language user, telling people to go fuck themselves, I think that's kind of funny. Like, that is amusing, but I think that it's, like, it's not a problem in its own, but I think it's an issue because there's, like, no contrast. Like, it didn't even register, it barely registered with me that was like, oh, an outstanding thing about the character. Because, like, Carmilla swears all the time. Fucking all the vampires swear all the time. Trevor swears all the time. Alucard swears Alucard swears a decent amount. Sypha starts swearing in this season. God damn it, they have a whole conversation about it. Random one-off characters swear all the time. Like, Ratko swears all the time. Varney is death. That doesn't matter. I feel like even Saint Germain's curses. Like, it's like, it gets to a point where it feels excessive, and this is the problem, right? This is the problem with writing a lot of cursing, is that it dilutes the power of cursing. That, like, when you're writing a character and you're writing dialogue for a character, the things, like the way that they choose their words, their vocabulary informs who they are. You can tell a lot about someone just from the way that they speak, the way that they articulate themselves, the kinds of words that they use. The way, if they gesticulate when they talk, there's lots of ways, just the way that people communicate that tells you a lot about the character. And swearing can be a very powerful way of telling the audience something about a character. And I think that the show suffers a little bit from this isn't a destroy, oh my god, it all falls apart, but I feel like it's a bit of a weakness in the writing that so many characters curse so often that the power of a character cursing gets really diluted, and it really loses its power. So that even when you have something that could be really amusing, like this force of nature, the embodiment of, or I guess he's not really an embodiment of death, but they point that out. But like the Grim Reaper swears all the time. It's just like, yeah, and everyone does. It almost would have been more of a contrast if he didn't swear. If he like, oh man, if he said like frick, oh, that would have been awesome. If he said like crap, like frick, I'm sending you to HE double hockey sticks, Trevor Belmont. That would have been great. But instead he talks like half the characters in the show. Yeah, I don't know. It felt excessive to the point where it's like, okay, you didn't have to write. Did the character have to say fuck here? I feel like they could have just used another word and it wouldn't have mattered. Which I think is an issue from like a writing point of view. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that was kind of, I was thinking about that because it happens every season and it's very consistent. It's a lot of cursing. Is there anything else? I wish they used more music from the games. There's the scene at the end of season 2, or the last battle of season 2 with Dracula, where they play, or not the last battle with Dracula, but there's in that whole sequence where they're storming the castle, where they play like an orchestral version of Bloody Tears. I wish they'd done more of that. There might have been a licensing issue or something. Like maybe the composer owns the license and they only got the budget to like license one song and, you know, reorchestrate it. I think it would have been cool to see like I don't know, Vampire Hunter. Is Vampire Hunter used for anyone in particular? I don't recall. Doesn't it show up in like a bunch of games? Castlevania Vampire Hunter. Vampire Killer, that's the name. Vampire Killer is the name of the song. Vampire Killer. Oh my god, just give me the search results for the song. Yeah, no, it appears in like... Yeah, it appears in obviously the original, Castlevania 3, Super Castlevania 4. It's in like all of them. It's in Rondo of Blood. It's in God, this thing has been re-released so many times. Yeah, it's like a really like I wish that one was in there. What are some other classic Castlevania songs? Castlevania. What do I even search for? Famous songs. Yeah, Bloody Tears, Tragic Prince. I'm trying to think of like the ones that are in like every game. Heart of Fire, that's another one. Yeah. Like the I feel like that's a good, I don't know, a neat leitmotif. You could have had something, I don't know. I just wish there'd been a little more homage to the music of the games if you're gonna take like enemy designs and stuff like that. But yeah, overall, what would I give to the overall Netflix Castlevania series? I'm gonna give it a thumbs up. I would recommend it if you can get through. Oh my god, well, what the fuck? What am I even talking about? This is a whole spoiler thing. But if I was to, this is what you could tell someone else. If they haven't seen it, this is what you can tell someone else if they ask if they should watch it. That's how I justify giving a recommendation. I would recommend it if you can get through a little bit of like about a season's worth of, which is, you know, about 10 episodes of kind of slow moving, a lot of character dialogue focused scenes, big payoff at the end, some interesting character work, cool concepts, and pretty interesting world. I guess I've neglected to mention that, but the world of the series is pretty interesting. I like it a lot. The whole system of vampires and how like monsters work in this world and magic and stuff is genuinely cool, and I like the way that they played with those concepts, with like the Forge Masters, Hector and Isaac, and the way that these kind of little magical systems work. Yeah, even if you haven't, it succeeds where a lot of video game adaptations don't, which is that even if you have no interest or care for the games, you could probably still enjoy this quite a bit. A lot of video game adaptations, just the only points they get are, oh, well, that was a thing I knew. Oh, I recognize that. Excuse me. This has substantially more than that. It has actual characters that it seems to care about. Excuse me. It has good action. It has some pretty good voice acting all around. There was some voice acting I found a little, I don't know, shaky. But overall, I would highly recommend it if you want something that you can burn through in like about a week. If you wanna just binge through. We watched the whole thing in like a day. We watched pretty much every season in like a day each. Yeah. This brings me to my final thing, which is that, okay, so I need to give you some backstory. So we were talking about, we saw a trailer, or we got recommended a trailer on YouTube for Fast and Furious X or whatever the 10th one's being called. And Kat goes like, damn, I really didn't think that they were going to be able to top the last one. Like, they jumped the fucking shark with the last one. I'm like, oh, what, did they like literally jump the shark or something? She's like, no, they went to space. And I looked at her and I was like, you're joking, right? And she goes, no, they fucking ludicrous Tyrese Gibson go to fucking space. And I was like, why? What? She's like, I'm like, how do they get to space? And she's like, they drive a car. They drive a car into space. I'm like, why? It's like, so they can stop the bad guy's satellites in space. It's the only way. And I'm like, you're pulling my leg right now. You're yanking my chain. You're stretching my foreskin. And she goes, no. And she pulled up the scene. They actually go to fucking outer space in the 9th movie. And I was like, this is insane. I want to watch this now. And she's like, but you have to watch all of them. And I'm like, do you want to watch all of them? Do you want to watch every Fast and Furious movie? And she's like, why not? We just finished Castlevania. So we have begun our plunge into the Fast and Furious myth. Into the franchise. We watched the first 4 movies in release order. We're just watching it in release order. So that would be The Fast and the Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious, The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, which takes place much later in the timeline, but was released 3rd, and Fast and Furious. Just that, no thes. We're going too fast. We don't have time for thes. So, I will give some quick thoughts individually, because to be honest, these movies are not deep. And that's kind of the best thing about them. I fucking love The Fast and the Furious and the sequel. I love the first 2 movies. Holy shit. Those movies fucking rule. So, it's like, I am not a car guy, right? I'm not a car guy. I don't find cars particularly interesting or cool or anything like that, right? So I was never really interested in the Fast and Furious series. I'd never seen one before. All I knew was that it's cars and, apparently it gets crazy. There's like big action. They do a bunch of stuff with cars and stuff. And that's all I knew going into this. So the first movie, I've heard this joke that like, the first 2 movies or whatever, back when it was actually about racing, street racing, and that's not entirely true. The first movie already had like, okay, it's street racing, but like, there's this plot where Paul Walker he's gotta find out who's stealing the DVDs, which is such a weird plot line. Like, it looks it's not very high stakes. I thought that was really weird. I'm like, you couldn't have made it like drugs or weapons or something like that. Like, it would have been so easy. The fact that it's DVD players that are being stolen isn't even like, it's like, I'm not resting at night in my bed, sleeping peacefully, knowing that Paul Walker is keeping criminals from getting DVD players. Like, okay, they can be expensive, but like, okay, but whatever. Okay, Paul Walker, he's got to stop some unknown group of criminals from stealing. They're stealing DVD players right out of trucks while they're moving. Which they never really show how they do this. Like, get the players out of. I guess they commandeer the trucks. I guess that's what they do. They use a grapple hook. Like, it's a little ridiculous, right? It's a little over the top. The movie's like, it's kind of pushing it, right? With that. And it's like, okay, Paul Walker, in order to get close to them, has to infiltrate the street racing world. He's got to make connections. He's got to find out what's going on. That's why he's in. And we were making, so up front, I'm going to get this out of the way really quick. Paul Walker, when he was in his 30s, dated a 16-year-old girl. So I am not going to stop making jokes about Paul Walker being a child predator any discussion I have on these movies. So get ready for that. I'm sorry if you had to find out this way. You can look it up. She was 16 or 17. I forget exactly which one. Um, uh, and it's fucking hilarious. It is so funny when because God, it makes one of the movies so much funnier. God damn. So Paul Walker has to infiltrate Vin Diesel's street racing group, his garage. And the movie has this incredible homoerotic aura to it. There's a lot of really interesting things going on under the hood, if you will. Like there's a moment where Paul and Vin Diesel lock eyes. And if this was like a male and a female character, this would 100% be like visually telling us that they're falling in love. Or that they're attracted to each other. But because it's the Fast and the Furious, you're quote-unquote not supposed to take it like that. They're just sharing a deep, mournful look into each other's eyes. Paul Walker's types are big, sweaty men and 16-year-old girls. There's so much weird product placement. Like the first scene, they're having oh God, can I find the quote? Hold up. The Fast and the Furious, what is that? Fucking McDonald's quote? Where like this guy and Paul Walker get into a fight over like sandwiches. Is my internet dying? Is my internet borking? Oh, hell nah. And he's like walking up to, because like Paul Walker's ordering like the tuna sandwich. It's such a bizarre, it feels like it's out of a parody. Paul Walker's ordering a sandwich. I think my internet's just has an outage. That's weird. And this guy who doesn't like that he's there, he's like, why don't you go get a 2-for-1 special off the dollar menu available now at McDonald's? Asshole! No one gets the fucking tuna over here. Tuna sucks ass. It's so weird. Oh yeah. The Fast and the Furious. McDonald's. Wait, what is McDonald's style quotes? I live my life a quarter pounder at a time, and for those 500 calories or more, I'm free. I made that exact same joke. I made that exact same joke when we were watching the movie. Why are there so many results for just Fast and Furious McDonald's style quotes? Was this a meme? Was this a meme in 2006 on forums? Oh my god, it is. What the fuck? This is from 2002. Like a year after the movie came out. I need fries. 2 of them, the big ones. Oh, and I need them tonight. Amateurs don't supersize. I've seen how you eat. You got a big mouth. You'll blow yourself up. What's the retail on one of those? More than you can afford, pal. $6 burger. It's not how you stand by your burger. It's how you eat your burger. These are so good. This is from 2002? Holy shit. Now I want a hamburger. Anyway, yeah, it's fucking hilarious. Dominic Toretto, Vin Diesel, he has a lot. We only drink Corona over here. This movie has a powerful, and maybe this is just me. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm just the only one picking up on this. This movie has a strong Mexican American aura to it. Like, I know that Vin Diesel is like an Italian American guy. You know, the Diesel, the very Italian last name. But like, I feel like there's a lot of like macho Mexican dudes who like kin Dominic Toretto. They're like, he's just like me. He's just like me, dude, for real. Just like, I don't know, the scenes where they're having like a backyard barbecue with the styrofoam plates, the Coronas, someone's fucking dog is barking in the background, the chicken wire fence. Maybe this is just reminding me of growing up in Rogers Park. maybe this is a more universal experience than I give it credit for. But like, It took me back. Well, we were a Budweiser household, by the way. Not a Corona. My mom dated a Mexican guy throughout my whole childhood, so I had a lot of contact with the Mexican American culture. So like, I don't know, that stuck out to me. It felt like I was back in my childhood and fucking miserable again. So just it's a very like multiracial series too, right? Like everyone, like tons of different races, different ethnicities. They go to like the big race is called Race Wars. That's awesome. Paul Walker has to win for the race wars for the white race, and put the others in their place. Put the other races in their places. Say that to their faces. But first she's got to get in Dominic Toretto's good graces. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's honestly a pretty enjoyable action crime car driving movie. The final scene, not the final scene, the climax with like the heist that goes wrong is really good. It's genuinely like a really intense action sequence. Like I don't know how much of it was real, quote unquote, per se, like how many stunt doubles were used or how much like how dangerous it actually was, but it feels dangerous. I'm like, oh shit, this guy's hanging off of a truck. The trucker is shooting a shotgun at him from inside the vehicle. He's got like this, the wires wrapped around his arm. He's like, you can see the blood coming down. It feels really pretty gritty, honestly. And this super like, they're trying to get over to him, and it's really intense. Like I was really like on the edge of my seat during that. It was a great action sequence. And then the super climax, which is so funny. The Fast and the Furious, the first one, has no like falling action. It's really odd. It just has a super climax, which is the name for that. It's the climax after the climax, where Paul Walker races Vin Diesel in like a street race. They do a quarter-mile street race. And when they fucking do, I was so hyped. When they outrun the trains coming, they outrun the train, they barely miss it. I was like, dude, this movie fucking rules. Whoever writes this is really, really smart. They know what they're doing. And then like he lets him go at the last moment, and it's kind of like, huh, interesting. And then the movie just ends. And I was like, damn, that movie was fucking awesome. And then we jumped right into Too Fast, Too Furious, which might even have more driving. So one of the things that I really noticed with Too Fast, Too Furious, and this was present in the original, but it feels really intense here. This is where it gets really strong in the babes category. There's a lot of scantily clad women in like Y2K fashion, and Kat loved all of it. She probably liked it more than I did, surprisingly. It's just, it's so Y2K. It's so of its time. It's crazy. Like the fashion, the pants, the hats, the glasses. It's so 2000s, dude. You could tell, like, man, this came out in 2001, 2002, and it's great. I really enjoyed Too Fast, Too Furious as well too. It feels like a more it starts off like right off the bat. And this is foreshadowing when they jump the bridge. When they jump the bridge during the first, which is like, that's crazy because like Ludacris is trying to kill them. Like you would die, but they're just cool. Hey, the car's a little banged up. And he just looks at us like, yeah, it's a little surprise, little spice for the race. And it's like, you're going to murder them, Luda. No Dominic, no Vin Diesel. He's in Baja, Mexico now, and doing whatever. And instead, it's Tyrese Gibson, who I was familiar with from the Shayla Rocks video. Holy shit, I've never laughed. There's few things that can make me laugh as hard as Shayla Rocks. sorry. It genuinely makes me laugh. If you don't know what I'm talking about, can you find it by just searching up? Hold up. Tyrese Gibson Shayla rocks. Tyrese Gibson crying. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm like laughing for real. So Tyrese Gibson. Dude, I'm lightheaded. Tyrese Gibson was in a custody battle. You've probably seen this at least in a meme. He was in a custody battle for his daughter, and he's in a fucking hotel room. And he's trying to win custody of his little daughter, and he's crying. And he's printed out these t-shirts that just say in big impact font lettering, the name of his daughter Shayla. It says Shayla rocks. And he's crying. And he's wearing this fucking hoodie that says Shayla rocks. That says Shayla rocks. It's so fucking funny. It's like the wording specifically of Shayla rocks is like, it's so cheery and carefree, and he's fucking crying. It's so goddamn funny. Holy shit, my head is laid. Oh my god. And anyway, he shows up, and he's Paul Walker's friend, and they had the lightheadedness is hitting me. I gotta take a second. So he's, Paul, he got booted off the force because he let Toretto go in the first movie. And he's back on the force now. They need him because he's the only one, right? He's down in the criminal underground now, but he's the only driver. He's the best driver they got. And they've got to take down this criminal, this drug kingpin. And the only way he can do it is by driving a car really fast. And at this point, I'm starting to see the structure of the series, which is that I was like, wait, okay, Kat, tell me. Because she doesn't remember a lot of them very well. But she's seen them. And I was like, Kat, does this just turn into Yu-Gi-Oh! But cars? And she goes, yeah. And what I mean by that is, in Yu-Gi-Oh!, yeah, there's whatever supernatural bullshit where they gotta, oh my god, they're opening the portal to the evil dimension or whatever. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to they have to play a card game. But you gotta play a card game. Oh my god, fucking the evil energy monster's gonna destroy the world, and in order to stop him, you gotta play a game of duel monsters. You gotta play a children's card game. That's what it always comes back to. And this, I'm like, okay, is this just going to be, there's some world and some criminal conspiracy or big villain threat. And then the way that the main characters solve the problem is you got to go really fast in a car. You got to drive a car really fast. Yeah, that's basically how it goes. So Paul Walker, he gets busted for something at the start of the movie. Is he speeding or something? I don't know. It's something like he's going like, I don't know. He's going, oh, you're going 60 in a 50 zone or something like that. And Paul Walker's style is he actually likes to go 32 into a 16, if you know what I'm talking about. And they basically say like, hey, we'll strike your criminal record that you've built up between movies if you'll do this job for us, and we're gonna have a tracker on you, and you got to infiltrate this guy's organization and drive a car really fast. And he's like, all right, but my driver has got to be Tyrese Gibson, who's also a big old criminal guy. So they're both going to get clemency if they pull off this job. And they drive cars really fast, and they beat the bad guy. Paul Walker drives bad guys escaping on a boat. Tyrese and Paul Walker are in a car driving side by side. And he's like, we got to get to that boat. And Tyrese goes, but that's a boat and we're in a car. How are we going to get there? And I'm like, no fucking way. No fucking way. And Paul's like, Tyrese figures out what he's going to do. He's like, you crazy ass cracker, or whatever the fuck he says. And then Paul drives it off the bridge. He drives it off the bridge and crashes into the boat. I'm like, fuck yeah, drive it off the fucking bridge. It's so awesome. It's sick as fuck. Yeah. That movie fucking rules. There's really, like, I could go over analyzing the plot or whatever, but, like, no one cares. No one gives a fuck. It's just, what's the next cool thing that's going to happen? When's the next cool line going to happen? And on a very basic primal level, that's the appeal of the Fast and Furious franchise. It's cool shit happening all the time. And it's fucking epic. It's not deep. It's not complex. It's just awesome. Just stop being a stick in the mud. Fucking dork. Right after I just said that I appreciated the talking scenes in Castlevania. Then we watched, fucking awesome movie. And then Tokyo Drift. Tokyo Drift is weird because it oddly dials back the energy. It tones things down. There's a little bit, there's some intense driving scenes. There's some cool, like, drifting stuff. There's the scene where, like, you see the main character building up his ability to drift until, like, I really liked the moment where they've got this big chase through the city, and he's gonna plow through this whole crowd of people. They're all running aside, and the only way he can make the turn is if he drifts really good. And he does, and I'm like, he's drifting really good. It's fine. I thought it was kind of interesting that it takes place mostly in Japan. It strikes me, Tokyo Drift strikes me as a movie that was not initially a Fast and the Furious movie. And then they retroactively, someone was like, okay, we can make this movie happen if we update the script a little to make it a Fast and Furious movie. So basically, that means throw in a cameo from Vin Diesel at the end, call it Fast and Furious, and, I don't know, maybe make it a little more Fast and Furious-like or whatever. Someone wanted to make a movie about Tokyo drifting, the Japanese drifting scene, and then someone came in and said, hey, we gotta make it let's make it a Fast and Furious movie. So, it's a good movie. It's apparently one of the least popular, like, people fucking hate this movie for some reason. Looking at it on its own, I think it's pretty alright. It's got some cool driving scenes. The character work is decent. Kat did not give a fuck. Kat's hard to impress. Maybe I'm more forgiving on shit than she is, but, like, I thought the main character, the fact he's Bama Boy. He's Bama Boy, like, 93 or whatever his username is on AOL Messenger that they show for 1 second. He's fine. I'm like, okay, he's got to go to Japan as, like, a punishment. He's got to go live with his dad. He's kind of an outcast, kind of a rebel. He's he's sort of playing into, like, a bit of a Bancho type, I guess. Not quite the whole thing, and I don't even know how intentional it was, but it sort of reminded me of that, like the way he wears his uniform and all that. Doesn't speak any Japanese, speaks a little bit by the end. Very bad at pronunciation, which I thought was funny, because he would be. Honestly, the Japanese that the other characters speak, like specifically the other non-Japanese characters, pretty good. Like, I forget who plays the girl, the only fucking non-Asian girl who, of course, he's gonna go for. We can't have our main character falling in love with the Asian girl. They're background characters. Her, like, pronunciate like she. Yes, you could tell she actually like they at least told her if she didn't know, they at least got like a decent coach to tell her how to like pronounce Japanese words. Yeah, it's pretty fine. I think my favorite part of the movie was the character Han. he's just cool. I don't know how to describe it other than he's just cool. I really like his actor. I'm glad that they bring him back in later movies because he's like a really cool part. Yeah, he's probably the best part of the movie. I thought like whenever he's on screen and he's talking, I'm like, this is a cool character. Like he has a cool vibe. I like that he's like really chilled out. He's always snacking. The actor does a really good job at portraying that sort of kind of like he's I don't know. He's very confident, but not in like he's not cocky. He's always trying to like he's very slick. He's doing this sort of criminal stuff on the side, but he doesn't make it really apparent. He's like a contrast to the main villain, the son or the nephew, who's like really devious and he flaunts it and he kind of abuses his power because his uncle's a yakuza. Yeah, pretty fine movie overall. And then Fast and Furious, they just dropped the thes for some reason. Definitely feels like a turning point where you can tell like, okay, now it's really Yu-Gi-Oh but cars. I can't say Yu-Gi-Oh with cars because that's just 5Ds or I guess motorcycles. But it's way more of like this is just like a crime story where they happen to we need to find a justification to drive cars. And there's things that are still enjoyable about it, but it loses a bit of like the street racing element, which I think is a little disappointing, at least just in the fact that I realize how fun that is in the first two movies, and even Tokyo Drift, because that has a lot of that. Kat loved all the skimpy Asian women in that movie because she's a fiend. But like the whole street racing scene where like everyone's hanging out, there's like people playing music, all different races, and just like clashing and kind of jiving and it's like it's cool. It's like a cool environment and little subculture that they're portraying. I don't know how accurate it is. I went to high school with a guy who did street racing and would like go to meetups and stuff like that. I don't know if he ever drove, but I would like sometimes see these sort of just like street racing meetups on like his Snapchat story. And I was like, oh fuck, okay, stay safe, I guess. Yeah, so like the losing a bit of that element is a little disappointing because it's like a fun sort of flavor, like a little bit of culture in the in them. This feels very much like, okay, this is like a Hollywood action movie. It's a crime story. It's a revenge story. They killed Vin Diesel's girlfriend, and now he's back for revenge. But there's still enjoyable parts. Like, the driving is pretty, like, it's decent. There is some fun, like, driving action sequences. Vin Diesel turns into, like, a fucking superhuman. He just disappears in the blink of an eye. He's super strong for some reason. He's just like, there's a scene where he goes to interrogate a guy who was connected to his girlfriend's death. He just kicks down the door and like, boom, just boom, like fucking Duke Nukem. He takes a bullet to the shoulder and like barely moves or reacts. It's awesome. I'm fully on board with him turning into like a cryptid. It's great. He's so powerful. Like his bullet wound is never even addressed outside of the one scene where like his sister dresses the wound. It like never comes back. It's so funny. But it's like, oh, they got to take down the cartel. We got to go to Mexico. And take down the cartel leader by driving a car really fast. And it's fun. It's a fun movie. There's still fun parts of it, but it's different. You can tell there's a bit of a shift in the way that it's in what it's kind of relying on. I'm very curious to see the rest of them. Also, from what we could glean from just like user ratings, the third or Fast and Furious is one of the lower rated movies, like maybe the lowest rated next to Tokyo Drift. I could see that. Maybe in the next movies they'll kind of figure out the formula. What I want out of Fast and Furious is I want funny, epic shit happening. I want guys trying to prove their masculinity way too hard, like when Paul Walker drives backwards on the highway so that he can just like show off against some guys he's racing against. That stuff's awesome. That stuff's great. I gotta prove I'm a man. I'm gonna cause a huge traffic hazard. It's unironically the best. I love it when it's being stupid and over the top and they're driving cars really fast and they're gonna lose and then they hit the button and they hit the fast button and then they go really fast. And then they do crazy shit with cars where they jump off a bridge. And then I like when Dominic Toretto is like a fucking human meatball and he's trying to give an emotional scene and he literally can't because Vin Diesel is such a bad actor that it just sounds like a robot. It's great. I just want more of that. I want it to be ridiculous. I like it when it's ridiculous and fun and it's not taking itself seriously in the like that it's a soap opera. It's very like the Fast and Furious feels like a soap opera. It feels like it's going to that direction. Like, why didn't you tell me about this? And if anything, I hope it goes more intense in that direction. Where like, honestly, fucking at this point, I hope Fast and the Furious, Fast X or whatever they're calling it, is, it's got like Jason Momoa. I hope that, and I think it's gonna be like a two-parter or something. It's like the beginning of the end. I'm hoping against hope that in the final movie they have to like go back to hell. They have to drive their cars into hell to like save Paul Walker's soul because he fucked too many underage girls or something like that. Oh, I want more homoerotic undertones. That shit was great. I want more product placement that's just blatant and bizarre. Everything that makes I want more babes in skimpy outfits. I want everyone having a good time. I want more backyard barbecuing. That's the movie. That's what I want out of a Fast and Furious movie, having seen the first 4. And I am very much looking forward to. We're gonna build up. We're gonna build up to Fast X. We're gonna watch all of them so that we can go to theaters and watch the 10th movie, including the spin-offs. Because I know Jason Statham shows up. I'm very excited. Well, in any event, I've been talking for way too goddamn long. If you enjoyed this, if you're listening this far, thank you for listening to me ramble. What else do I say? If you have a question, leave it in the comments below, but please leave it in the form of a question because I don't just want to read your thoughts out loud. I have a Patreon main channel video coming up soon. Have a wonderful day. Check out the System Shock demo. Yeah, it's free, by the way. Also, probably good at running. It's so funny. Probably, I read an article that was like, they reached out to the, like, devs, and they were like, hey, so are the low res textures meant to make it easier to run on, like, weaker hardware? And they just said it was intentional. And they were like, okay. Yeah, so, whatever. Bye.